And then when they share our experiences, we can also ask them questions. If you have any specific queries, feel free to go on our discussions page and you can ask your questions there, and these questions get transcribed. You can come and read them again. So Abhyudai, let's start with your brief introduction about your undergrad and how and when did you decide that you are going to do MBA and about that journey.
Right. Thank you, Ashish. So this is Abhyudai. I completed my undergrad from Jaypee Institute of Information Technology in Noida,
Okay.
and then I was working with technology consulting in firms like KPMG and EY. I worked across a number of countries. From KPMG, I spent most of my time in UK. And then with EY, I was mostly working out of their offices in Philippines, China, and Gurgaon. And having worked across different countries, different industries, consulting different clients at different levels, I felt it was a good time for me to kind of take a break and put into perspective everything that I had done so far and see what I want to extract from the rest of my career. And hence, an MBA felt like the right next step. When I started looking at the B schools that kind of fit the mold for me, most of the schools in the US really seemed like the right option. The only school that I had applied to in Canada was Rotman. And now, when I look back, it was a blessing in disguise that I actually ended up applying to a school in Canada. And it was one of the schools that accepted me along with a few schools in the US. Uh, and after having completed my MBA at Rotman, I'm now working with Deloitte in Toronto. I work with the strategy consulting arm at Deloitte, and I've completed about 5 months with the firm now. So that's a little background for me, and I'm very happy to answer any questions. GyanDhan was very helpful in helping me secure a loan in India and was instrumental in helping me get to Canada. So it's only obvious that I would want to pay back in whatever ways that I can.
Okay. Okay, real nice. So, Abhyuday, can we start with your GMAT journey and how was it? When did you start preparing for it, and what were the challenges that you faced?
Right. So I've worked in consulting for most part of my life, and consulting life is extremely hectic. So I always knew that if I had to take my GMAT, I would either have to take a sabbatical, or if I had to do it while I was still working, I would have to spend a lot of dispersed time on it. So I had started off pretty early. I think a year and a half, 2 years into my job, I had started preparing for my GMAT. And before I came into my MBA, I had an experience of almost 4.5, 5 years. So I did prepare for that time. But when I say that, I don't want to scare people off. When I started preparing for the GMAT, I was able to put in, say, only 5, 6 hours, 7 hours a week.
Okay.
And whenever I would get a lean period at work, I would try and increase my effort at the GMAT, and that's the way I did it. And I also took my GMAT twice. So the first time I took it, I had a 700, and after that I had a 720. So uh, sometimes it does help to take the GMAT multiple times. And I've also seen times when the first score that people get is the highest score that they get, and then every subsequent time that they take the GMAT, it only keeps going down. So one piece of advice here is don't cancel your scores, because you don't stand to gain anything by really canceling your scores. If you get a higher score later, that's what the school is going to look at. If you start getting lower scores later on, then you're going to repent canceling your previous scores.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So, as you said that you gave GMAT twice, right? So,
Right.
was there any target in your mind that you wanted to achieve as far as your GMAT score is concerned?
Well, the target in my mind was a 750, but I never could get to it. So yeah, because the schools that I was looking at were mostly in the US, and for US schools, an engineer, male, uh, working in technology or consulting is an extremely uh, common profile.
Okay.
Not to say they don't get the best of MBA schools. They do. These are the profiles that you will see going to best of these schools. But then again, there are a lot of people with such a profile applying to such schools, and the way these schools recruit students is a criteria for them is to also look at diversity. So
Okay.
if suppose a big B school in the United States who recruits say 60, 70 people from India, they are not going to get everyone who's an engineer. So they would maybe want to get 10, 15 engineers and then 10, 15 people who spent their time in commerce or are chartered accountants, and 10, 15 people who spent their time doing something else. For example, spent their time in HR, or uh, even doctors do MBAs these days. So they want to look at diversity, and that's where male engineers being the most common profile, they are often able to get people with very high GMAT scores in that area. So if you want to crack a good school, then a good GMAT does make sense.
Okay. Since we are talking about, the factors responsible and GMAT, so could you quantify what, the weightage GMAT has as far as the application is concerned in universities abroad for MBA?
It's very hard to say what weightage GMAT has, but the way I'll put it is it's more like a qualifying criteria.
Oh,
So right? So if you have a good GMAT, then you go to the next stage, which is an interview. But if you do not have a great GMAT, so they'll either look at the GMAT, or they look at your profile and try to see what different are you bringing to the school. So if
okay.
either of those two is able to balance the application, then people will generally get interviews. But if both of those are weak, then you don't even get an interview. And if you don't get an interview, going past is difficult. Having said that, a GMAT generally gets you an interview, and thereon the weightage of the GMAT is very low. So
Okay.
it can be that someone who's got a 760, 770 GMAT also gets an interview, and somebody who's got a 710, 720 also gets an interview. And then
Okay.
after the interview, the guy who had a 710 gets an offer, and the guy who had a 760 could not, because in the interview they were not able to impress the committee.
All right.
Yeah,
So as far as MBA is concerned, there is a confusion that it's a fact actually that universities also accept GRE scores. All right.
yeah,
So
yeah,
what advantage does GMAT specifically have? You know, uh, with
yeah.
respect to admission over GRE.
Right. So I that's a slightly hard question for me to answer, because it's only the admissions people at certain schools that can answer that question very accurately. But
Okay.
from what I've seen with friends, is that GRE and GMAT are generally treated the same way. It's just that they are scores that are, as in the full score in GRE and GMAT is different. So the cutoff in GRE is different. A score that's considered good in GRE is different from what's considered good in GMAT. People who are have a mathematical bent of mind, like engineers, who
Okay.
are mostly left-brained, are generally they generally find GRE to be easier than GMAT, because GMAT has a lot of weightage on the English section, and GRE has a lot of weightage on the quantitative section. So as Indians, as engineers, we generally tend to knock the quantitative part out of the park, but the English is where most people struggle, and a low score in English can really pull your overall GMAT score down. And universities will also request uh, a breakup of the GMAT. So even if you've got an amazing quant score, a low English score can really work against you.
Okay. All right. So, was there a best time in your mind that you wanted to give your GMAT, and how many months did you prepare for? You said that you were only giving 6 to 7 hours a week. So,
Yeah.
how long did you give in terms of months?
Uh, well, 6 to 7 hours a week, I would have given for about 4 months, 4 to 5 months, I would say. But that's generally on the higher side. People mostly prepare for GMAT for 2 to 3 months. They put in more number of hours per week than I did, but they will generally prepare for 2 to 3 months and then give it. So when I was giving my mock tests, once I started getting scores in a good range, I gave it then. A good range for everyone is subjective, but when you feel that you're almost getting to the point where your target score is, I suggest that you should give it. There's no point over preparing for the GMAT because after a certain point, it becomes the learning curve is almost flat and you don't see a lot of improvements. And eventually, I've seen that some people over prepare and their scores actually start going down.
True.
So there is that sweet spot when you want to give the GMAT.
Okay. Okay, so Abhyuday,
Yeah.
now we'll start taking questions from our attendees. So,
Right.
okay, so first question is from Sid, and Sid asks that Rotman, IB, and HEC, as per reviews, are top 10 colleges. But do you think they are
Right.
overhyped? Is it fair to compare Ryerson Business Program with Rotman School of Management?
Right. So when you look at the Canadian landscape of these schools, Rotman, Ivy, and Queens would generally be considered in the same league, which is the Tier 1 league.
Okay.
If I were to take parlance from India, I would say it's like the IM Ahmedabads and the ISBs of India. So that's the Tier 1 schools in Canada. Then in the next year, you would generally see schools like McGill and Schulich, uh, and probably UBC as well. And then I would think of schools like HEC and Ryerson. So they're definitely not comparable. But
Okay.
then an important part of choosing the right business school is what is it that you're exactly trying to get out of this MBA program, right? So when I said that I was applying to schools in the United States mostly, and I would have applied to about 10 schools in the US and only Rotman in Canada.
Okay.
And in hindsight, I actually think that me choosing Rotman was a blessing in disguise, and it worked out really well for me. uh, and out of all the schools that I had got admitted to, if I look at the Fortune rankings,
Hmm.
Rotman was the lowest. I
Okay.
had admissions from schools like UCLA and Cornell, and I did not take those schools, which are top 20 US schools. And I would say Fortune, they are in the top 40 or something. And Rotman was around 60, 65. But I still feel Rotman worked out well for me because I was very clear in terms of what I wanted from the MBA. I knew I wanted a shot at top consulting firms, which included firms like McKinsey, BCG, and Bain, and the Big Four firms. And when I looked at schools that I was getting in the US, these firms do not recruit there. So the way these firms recruit is that they would generally go to top colleges in each country. And because Rotman is the best school in Canada, they recruit from Rotman. But
Okay.
because the other schools that I was getting in the US were top 20 schools, they do not recruit from there.
Okay.
And because I was very clear in terms of what I wanted, I made this decision to come to Rotman, and I was actually able to interview with all these firms. So, so being clear about what exactly do you want to extract from the MBA it really helps you magnify your return on investment because I came to Rotman, my fees was also relatively lower as compared to US schools. But if I would have gone to another school in Canada, it would have been even lower. So Rotman is an expensive school in Canada, but if you compare it to schools in the US, it's a cheap school. So there are a lot of factors that play in when one is trying to choose their school. Just the ranking should not be the criteria because often that ranking is based on criteria that don't even matter to you. So geography is an important criteria. The cost that you incur in the business school is an important criteria. What kind of scholarships is the school giving out is an important criteria. What the school is known for is an important criteria. Uh, and what firms recruit from the B school is an important criteria. If you already know that this is the industry that I want to go to, and these are firms that I want to do an MBA for. If you don't know, then there are schools that are known for facilitating a lot of career changes, and that should be an important criteria when choosing.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say a ranking should be the only criteria.
True.
Just look at the entire set of criteria.
Okay. So, as your time in India, you did your engineering here, and you might have met few students from B schools of India. So, do you think there are any
Yeah,
basic differences between MBA abroad and those business schools in India?
right. Uh, yeah, I think there's a drastic difference between MBAs approached in India and the way it is approached in the United States and the way it is approached in Canada. So in India, the business programs are extremely academic, and then uh, interspersed with some case competitions, and the intertwining with firms while you're still doing your MBA is very less.
Okay.
The degree to which students liaise with firms during MBA in Canada is is more than one would do it in India. But the programs are still pretty academic in Canada. So it's almost like 40% academics, 40% working with firms, and 20% say case comps. And
Okay.
then if you work with B schools in the US, I would say it's only 20% academics, 50%, 60% working with firms, and the remaining is case comps and extracurriculars.
Okay.
So the way these countries approach their MBA is extremely different. Here, MBA is a major difference also is that people would more often than not have experience in B schools in North America. And if you go to a good B school, a top 100 B school in North America, they will not accept fresh people.
Okay.
So that's a huge difference as well. And how that lays in on your experience during the MBA is that the conversations that you have in the class are a lot more meaningful because people are drawing from their real life experiences,
Sure.
and the way the entire MBA degree is branded is very different from what it is in India. Here, it's more like a ticket to an elite club. So when I came into Rotman, I became a part of the Rotman family. And now when I'm on the street, I know people across all the five big banks in Canada, all the consulting firms, every big brand that is there in Canada. I know somebody or the other who's on my speed dial list. So,
Okay.
and that's what I have actually been able to extract from my MBA, more than just the degree or the academics.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Now the next question is from Nikita. It's more of a profile evaluation. So
Right.
the GMAT score of Nikita is 559, and in
Okay.
quant it's 35 out of 50. In verbal it's 30. Essay it's 5.5. The CGPA is 7.7, and she has an experience of 2.5 years. And her TOEFL overall score is 105. And she's targeting
Okay.
institutes like UBC, McGill University, University of Toronto. So, what do you think about this profile?
Right. I would suggest that if you can retake the GMAT and try and increase your score a little bit, even if you get to the range of 630, 650, you'll have a very good chances compared to your current score because at this point, it's at the cusp of the GMAT actually being the reason for your disqualification at these schools. So if you can take the GMAT once again and try and improve the score a little, that will definitely help you. Uh, Other than that, I think it's mostly fine for these business schools, and you should have a good chance. Another important aspect that you haven't mentioned here is what is your profile? So, what is it that you bring to the table in terms of what is your experience, and not just the fact that it's 2.5 years. So, what interesting work have you done, and how can you demonstrate it to the school? What impact have you made in the past? These are important factors that the schools will generally consider. I had a colleague of mine in Rotman who had a similar GMAT score, but she
Okay.
was really able to sell her experience. But she was the only one who had that kind of score.
Okay.
So the reason why I'm saying you should take the GMAT is so that you're not in that exception category, that you will get an admission by exception, but you should actually be in the real competing category, and you should be able to get a chance to showcase or demonstrate what you can bring to the table.
Okay. So the next question is from Anna. Uh, she asked that, hi, this is a question from our group. We are in our last year of BTech. I am asking it on their behalf. In terms of salaries, MBA graduates are on the higher end. But if we consider
Right,
job satisfaction as a factor as well, so should we prefer MS
right,
in our field or MBA after our graduation? If we consider
right,
Canada as our option for masters.
right. So that's a good question, and salary should definitely not be the only criteria for determining which job is the best. And at the same time, I would not say that jobs that people get from MBAs are not satisfying. So the difference is what satisfies who. The different people are able to draw satisfaction from different things, and if you feel that you will be able to draw satisfaction from a job uh, that requires you to put in less hours, not to say that MS will definitely get you a job that has that requires less hours of you, or MBA will definitely get you a job that requires more hours of you, but that's the likelihood. So if less hours make it satisfying for you, even if the money is a little less, then MS can be an option. So you will basically need to have to put down what is it that defines a satisfying job for you, and then compare it with the kind of jobs people do after an MS or an MBA. And none of the two degrees is better than the other. It's about what suits your particular profile. I know people who are extremely happy after having done an MS and never even think about an MBA. And then there are people like me who never even had an MS on their charts. It was always an MBA for me, and I'm pretty happy with the degree that I did. So, so it's all about what fits your criteria.
Okay. So the next question is from Manav. Are there any universities in Canada that offer 1 year MBA program? And what should we prefer, 1 year or 2 year MBA? Can you suggest some points we should keep in mind while choosing MBA program in Canada?
Right. So there are a few schools that offer 1 year programs. Ivy is one of them, and there are a few more as well. What you should consider while choosing a 1 year or a 2 year program is, again, what is it that you want at the end of the MBA? If you're looking to stay in the same line of work that you're already doing, then a 1 year MBA can work fine for you. But if you are wanting to switch careers, generally a 2 year MBA is better than a 1 year MBA, because a 2 year MBA gives you two shots at recruiting. One is during your internship, and one is during full time recruiting. And a lot of times when you want to switch industries, you want to take a little period of time, almost like a pilot program, which the internship allows you. You go work in that industry, see what it feels like. And a lot of times people just say that it sounded great from the outside, but it's not what I want, and I would be better off going back to the industry that I was in. So those are two important criteria that really help you determine if you want a career change and whether or not you will be able to make a career change. So that's an important consideration. And another consideration is the number of years of experience you have. Generally, people who come into a 1 year program, and even the kind of students or applicants that would get shortlisted for 1 year programs would have 5 or uh, probably 4+ years of experience.
Okay. Okay. So the next question is about work experience only. So NA asks, is 3 years of work experience enough for Rotman?
Yes, it is. I had enough and more people who had 3 years and some less than 3 years who were at Rotman. So yeah, it is enough.
Okay. So it was a brief question. So next question is from Saket. What is the internship scenario in Rotman? Can Indian students get internships easily? Also, can you shed some light on the job prospects at Rotman?
Right. That's a difficult question to answer.
Okay.
Mm, so when you say is it easy to get internships,
Hmm.
uh, out of the Indian cohort, about almost everyone got an internship.
Okay.
But what really qualifies as a good internship is very subjective, is how I'll put it. But everyone did get an internship. Most of them were paid. Some of them were not paid. So, so it's an entire spectrum. It was extremely easy for me to get an internship. I know people who found it decently hard to find an internship, and both of us were Indian. Uh, in terms of what the job prospects are at Rotman, any good firm that has a decent presence in Canada recruits at Rotman. So if it's in terms of which firms recruit, every firm that has presence in Canada will recruit, and some firms from the US as well. If you want to know what job statistics are, it's been 3 months that I have graduated from Rotman, and about 80% people, 75-80% people have jobs now. So so if you compare it to an Indian school, the statistics are shit. But if you compare it to a Canadian school, the statistics are probably one of the best because that's the way it works in North America.
Okay.
So yeah, those are the job prospects of Rock.
Okay. So I will take a minute, to ask the students who are posting their questions in Q&A sections. Please, I have shared the link of discussions page. Just click on that link and ask your questions there. It would be really helpful for you and other people who join these discussions later and want to see what happened during the session. So if you can, just click on that discussions link and post your questions there. All right. So I will come to next question. So the next question is from an attendee's behalf, and the question is that how were you able to get a scholarship at Rotman since the competition is quite intense at the particular moment, and how can we portray ourselves differently in order to get a good scholarship?
Right. See, the right answer to this is I don't know why I got a scholarship because I wasn't the one deciding. Why
Okay.
I think I might have got a scholarship is because I had a decently strong profile like a school at Rotman. Uh,
Mhm.
the average GMAT score is around 690, 700, and I had a GMAT score of 720. So I was one of those students who actually pulled their average GMAT up. I had a decent amount of experience. Uh, I think I was able to demonstrate value that I can bring to the school in a classroom and also able to showcase my employability after finishing my degree. Those, I think, would be important criteria that they must have used when deciding whether or not to give me a scholarship. Having said that, I had a very, very good friend who had the same profile as me, whose
Okay.
GMAT score was higher, and he now works at McKinsey, and he did not have a scholarship.
Okay.
So I really don't know why uh, I would have got a scholarship and he wouldn't have. So maybe the criteria that I'm talking about really did not were the reasons that I got a scholarship, but that's what I would like to think. In terms of how you can showcase or how you can portray your profile to be unique is uh, it's very subjective to each person. It's very subjective to the type of experience that you have, but I would suggest that you introspect and think about your experience in detail and bring out aspects from your career that you wouldn't think everyone in your organization or everyone who has the same degree as you would have uh, in their job profiles. For example, a common job profile for engineers in India would be working with, say, an Infosys, TCS,
Mhm.
Cognizant, or uh, technology services firms that provide technology services across the globe. But in such cases, you would want to talk to the kind of experience or the type of clients that you worked with, and what was the impact that you were able to bring through your project, and what was your exact role in that team that brought about that impact. So that is generally going to be very unique, and everyone will not have the same type of impact on every client. And the way you're able to demonstrate, showcase that impact, and how it ties with your future aspirations is actually a good way to showcase what you can bring to the table.
True, absolutely true. So the next question is from Sneha Bindu. So she says, "Hello, Abhyudai. Here's my profile. GMAT score is 700. I am an Indian MBBS doctor with 2 years of experience and a good extra curriculum in non-profit sector. And I plan on applying to Rotman or IWay. How
Okay.
good are those schools for management in healthcare sector specifically, and which one is better for healthcare? Also, how good is my profile for Rotman and IWay?"
Right. Hi, Bindu. So, I think you have a strong profile for Rotman for sure. If you are able to showcase your abilities and demonstrate the value that you can bring to Rotman, you should most likely get an offer, probably with a scholarship. Again, doctors are not the most common profiles that come to business schools, so you will have an advantage there. So I think you've got a pretty strong profile for Rotman. In terms of which school is better for healthcare, I know Rotman does get a lot of opportunities in the healthcare sector. So Rotman is definitely good. I can't speak to how good Ivy is. I would suggest that you reach out to alumni from Ivy. Just search them up on LinkedIn and
Okay.
see people who are working in the healthcare sector, and just send them a message and say that you're interested in uh, getting an MBA at IB and you want to find out if it's the best school for healthcare. And I am pretty sure that people will respond and help you out with how good or bad IB is for healthcare and if it's better than Rotman. And you would ideally want to speak to someone who's in the healthcare sector. I'm in the consulting sector, and therefore I do not have a lot of idea about how Rotman compares to IB in healthcare. So.
Okay. Thank you so much. So I think Sneha got her answer. The next question is from another attendee's behalf, and it looks like an incomplete question, but I'll give it a shot. The percentage in my BTech triple E is 70%, and I've been working in software field for 2.5 years. So is there any chance that I will get a spot in masters for Alberta or Toronto or McGill?
Uh, Okay. So yeah, you can totally get a spot in one of these schools. You have a good profile, and it's all about how you're actually able to showcase your profile. Like I said, there's no way to assess if even you'll get a spot at Harvard or not. So I wouldn't say that there is a reason why you will definitely not get a spot, or there is a reason why you will definitely get a spot. But yeah, it's about how you put your application together. I don't think I can answer that.
Okay. So, Abhijit, this was our last question. If you can
Right.
just summarize this session, and if you have any tips for students, if you have any tips, for the students who want to go abroad, who want to prepare for GMAT, just summarize it.
Sure. So I think there are a few things that you should consider while choosing the right business school. I alluded to them briefly earlier, but this is people often undermine the value in putting in the effort to select the right business school. This is a huge decision of your life that you're putting in terms of investment of time and money from your life. You're going to take a break from your career. You're going to invest loads and loads of money. When I was doing my MBA, I was spending so much on myself that I hadn't spent in the past 10 years. So you want to take the right decisions and spend that time and money in the right place. And the right place doesn't mean a good ranked school. I know enough and more people who went to Chicago Booth and they weren't very happy with the business school because it just wasn't for them. And I know so many people who went to schools like Rotman, Ivy, and are extremely happy with their choices. Not to say that these schools are better than Chicago Booth, but what I'm trying to say is just because a school is ranked really highly uh, doesn't mean it fits what you are looking for in a business school. Important criteria to consider when looking for a business school is to nail down the geography. Different geographies have different incentives, different motivations, and the first thing to identify is the geography that you want to work in. Avoid making decisions like I will go to Oxford in UK and then try to get a job in Canada because you are competing with people who've studied from local schools and they have a network while they were at the school, and it's going to be extremely hard to compete with them. Uh, Cost of the MBA is again a very important criteria because you just don't want to burn your money for a very small difference between two business schools. So the cost of the MBA is extremely important. Then what do you want in terms of career after finishing your degree? Your school should be ideally known for that career or should at least be second or third in that career if you're spending that kind of money. And and what is the age of the school? What's the alumni base like? Because that at the end of the day is what you're going to get out of the business school. It's a membership to that elite club, and the older the club is, more the alumni members. How well settled are the alumni members of this particular school? What is the level of camaraderie? Are people helpful at the school, or are they extremely competitive? You'll be able to find these things when you talk to people at the school. Uh, Coming from India, you'll find it uh, extremely bizarre and surprising at how helpful people from these schools are. And you just send them a note on LinkedIn, and more often than not, they will respond to you. So just leverage that piece and reach out to more and more people and ask them the right questions, and you'll have so much information about business schools, and you'll be able to make the right choice.
Okay, so let's conclude the session. Abhyudai, thank you so much for giving your precious time. I hope the students and aspirants have learned a lot from you, and I hope we can organize another session like this in future, where we can have more students learning from you, and
Sure.
from the aspirants who are watching us. There are other events at GyanDhan's event page. You can go there and register yourself for other events like this. And thank you so much. So let's end it.
All right. Thank you so much. Best of luck, everyone, and hope you make the right business school.
Thank you so much.